Welcome to Her Story, the history of Southeast Asia told from her perspective. We'll discover historical figures, matriarchal societies, and contemporary female icons, and maybe learn about ourselves along the way. I'm your host, Agus Ramirez. In the first part of episode 30, we explored the life of Salud Algabre, a key figure in the Sakdal movement. Born in 1894, Salud was a seamstress turned peasant farmer who became deeply involved in the agrarian struggles of her time. The Sakdal movement, founded by Benigno Ramos, criticized government corruption and pushed for unconditional independence. Salud and her husband Severo became prominent local organizers, distributing newspapers and educating farmers about their rights. The Sakdalistas famously staged an uprising on May 2, 1935, to disrupt a plebiscite tied to the Tidings-McDuffie Act, which offered delayed independence from the Americans. Dressed in Philippine flag colors, Salud led farmers in Cabuyao, Laguna to seize the municipal hall and proclaim independence. Despite their bravery, the rebellion was crushed within 2 days by government forces. Salud's story, often overlooked in Philippine history, highlights the vital but marginalized role of peasant women in nationalist movements. She remains a symbol of defiance and determination, echoing the belief that nothing is wasted in the fight for justice. Now we move on to the second part, where we sit down with Ana Algabre Hernandez. She is a poet, painter, book author, writer, and if you couldn't tell by her name, the granddaughter of Henerala Salud Algabre. Her unique perspective offers a deeply personal connection to her Lola Salud's legacy. We hope this dialogue will not only honor Salud Algabre's impact, but also encourage listeners to reflect on their own roles in shaping a more just and free future. For the summary and transcript of this full-length interview, you can head on over to Patreon. I'm not going to keep you waiting any longer. Here's Ana Algabre Hernandez.
First, thank you very much, Miss Agas, for this opportunity, and also hello to all your listeners. Anyway, my name is Ana Algabre Hernandez, and yes, I am an artist, and I'd say I create for a purpose, be it painting or poetry. I grew up with art in my life. My dad was the nephew of Generala Salud. He called her Inang Salud. He was a painter and a sculptor, and I remember him telling stories about Inang Salud, as he said, with admiration. My mother was a dressmaker, though during this time she would be considered a fashion designer in more modern time. So both the art of my parents provided for our family, and the youngest sister, who is a dentist by profession, she also paints. My dad's style is different from mine. He passed away in 2018. That was the time that we were posted in South Korea with my husband as the Philippine ambassador to South Korea. My dad and I used to talk about our signatures as artists, and I agree with him. My signature is really in my stroke, in my color, and in my images. And I understand that for this interview, which will be about my grandmother, I am proud to say that I am an Algabre by descent, and Generala Salud Algabre was my grandmother. And when we first made contact, I wanted to be very honest that I do not have a recollection of a face-to-face encounter with my Lola Salud, unlike my parents and some of my relatives who have had the opportunity being with her. But I have come to know more of her from family firsthand stories, and I think that is very, very important how the family saw Lola Salud.
Thank you very much for that very nice introduction. And I know you're based in Muscat now.
Yes, we are based in Muscat. We've been here for at least a year. We came from, as ambassador, my husband was in South Korea and then transferred to Ankara, Turkey. And then we went back to the Philippines. And from the Philippines, this is our assignment currently.
So I'm going to get right into some of the questions that I'm sure many people are also wondering. Do you have some stories about Salud Algabre, or Lola Salud? that have been passed down in your family, some of your favorite anecdotes that some people might not, but like most people wouldn't know about her.
Actually, I'm just very excited to. I had some anecdotes for you that probably you cannot have read yet. But anyway,
Mhm.
I'm very excited about the anecdote, which is very popular. Her remark when she was asked about her comment on the failure of the Sakdal uprising, she said,
Mhm.
"No uprising fails. Each one is a step in the right direction. You can't expect to win in just one battle." And then I read somewhere else, but I heard this from some of the family members, but not verbatim, something like in a long march to final victory, every step is important, every individual is important, every organization forms part of the whole. So this anecdote, I really love it because it showed to me that indeed she has a very strategic mind, and that she's very optimistic. She knows that some things take time. In these days of instant gratification, I think many of us can learn from her. The other thing that some members of the family were thinking is that Lola predicted the time and day of her death. Well, some members of the family say that it was actually a granted wish. You see, Lola said that, yeah, she would die on May 2 to a lot of the family members. But then, according to one of the family members, she said, oh, no, it was just her constant wish to die on that day. And incidentally, she died at 11 o'clock in the morning, which they believe was the time that she was able to raise the flag in the municipio, in the municipal hall of Cabuyao. So that one remains argued between family members whether it was a prediction or it was a granted wish. For me, it was probably a granted prayer because reading through all the other literatures about my Lola, I know that she considered the uprising the highlight, one of the highlights of her life. You know, one of the underappreciated aspects of my Lola, I think not many people realize or appreciate the depth of her role as a female revolutionary. Because my Lola was not just a participant. She was not just a supporter or a member who joined a bit later as part of the auxiliary or something like that. She was actually an organizer. She was the one who encouraged, who recruited, who mobilized a lot of the participants. She was also an intellectual. And from what she said after the uprising, we can say that she's a strategic thinker. And needless to say, she was the only female member in an all male organization. Despite that, she became to be known as Henerala. So we can say that her assertion of leadership for the independence of our nation, her voice for the betterment of the lives of the peasants and the ordinary Filipino were during that time in 1935 really groundbreaking. I also think that her leadership was really significant in a movement that is dominated by men. Yet, unfortunately, in this time, her role is minimized in historical narratives. And I even saw something that just mentioned her name, that's it, and nothing else. Because it seems that the Filipino revolutionary history, they often highlight the male figure, the contributions of my grandmother. They're sometimes overshadowed.
In the next part, Ana Algabre Hernandez mentions the anting-anting, which needs some introduction as many of you would be unfamiliar with the term. According to the anthropologist and columnist Michael L. Tan, an anting-anting is a type of amulet in Filipino culture believed to protect its wearer from harm or bring good luck. The term traces its roots to the Malay word anting, which means swinging or dangling, and the Javanese anting-anting or earrings. Similar to amulets in other cultures, anting-anting often serve a protective purpose, but they can also bring luck, pampaswerte. The most famous anting-anting are metal medallions featuring religious symbols and inscriptions in a variation of Latin some people might call corrupted. A popular example is the divine eye or third eye, which depicts an eye symbolizing God enclosed in a triangle. Other forms of Filipino magical objects include the gayuma or love charms and agimat, charms for power and protection, though these serve different purposes. For children, a specific type of amulet called kontrausog, a bundle of seeds and dried plants wrapped in red cloth, may be pinned to their clothing for protection. Anting-anting reflect a rich blend of indigenous, Malay, and religious traditions, showcasing the complexity of Filipino spiritual beliefs. Many Filipinos, even today, myself included, have anting-anting. My buwan or moon talisman was made by Susan Villario, also known as Una Artesana. She makes jewelry inspired by Filipino myth and folklore, and her recent series used pre colonial techniques to make these amulets. I just wanted to do a little shout out in case any of you are interested in the art and symbolism of Filipino talismans. All right, back to the interview.
There's the family talk that she has anting-anting. I think but when she was asked by I forgot which author asked her about it, she said that it's not really she did not say, she did not deny of anting-anting, but she just said that it's just really faith in God, and why she is protected was really more on the sincere belief that you will be saved from harm, especially if you only mean to do good. But family would say that she has three types of charms or amulets. So, I also like to read, and I became interested in these things, and I find that it's a bit common for people in Southeast Asia to believe also in agimat or amulet. So family members think that she has the ability to become invisible to the enemy, tagabulag, as they say in Tagalog. She's able to blind the enemy, so that there was even an anecdote that one of the soldiers who was chasing her was not able to find her, although she was just hiding right behind a banana tree. And in fact, that soldier urinated and she was there and did not even really see her. And all because of the amulet, that's what they say. The other one is that she has the strength of a buffalo. And the last one is that she has a charisma with people and the ability to tame the enemy. So these are the things that many in the family would talk about.
So thank you for sharing those really interesting anecdotes. Uh, so you talk about your family a lot. Did being related to a prominent historical figure bring any unique challenges or expectations to you growing up?
I can imagine that anyone related to a prominent figure could have pressures, right? But, for our case, up to this time, Lola Salud remains to be one of the oft forgotten or unsung Philippine heroes. It's actually very unfortunate because even in the Philippines, many have not heard about her, and many do not even know about her advocates or even the revolution that she led. So, in my heart, I think that the challenge for me is to do better to make her legacy known. I feel that I have really not done my part to help and celebrate her legacy. So I thank you actually for this platform that you've given us and for the opportunity that I'm able to talk about her. It's a very small thing that I can do for her. The other challenge, perhaps, that I am thinking is that we should be able to ensure that the truth is told about my Lola. But such is a challenge that I actually take pride to take on. Somehow I feel the need to protect her legacy. I am compelled to correct those who are misinformed about my Lola in general, because there are some who misunderstood the Sakdalista, but I could not really speak for the organization as a whole. I can only speak for my grandmother.
Taking off from that idea, what are there things that you think are misunderstood or appreciated about her contributions and her life's work?
One is there is an ongoing thought that the Sakdalista became Makapili. The
Mhm.
Makapili being the Makabay, Kalipunan ng mga Pilipino.
Mhm.
It was vilified, right? It was vilified by Philippines
Mhm.
people, especially after the war in 1945. I cannot speak for the rest or for the entire members of the Sakdalista, including Mr. Benigno Ramos, who was the founder of the three organizations, the Sakdalista, Ganap Party, and then the Makapili. I do not know what has become of him or of the other members from 1935 to 1945. But I do know about Henerala Salud. I know about my grandmother. We know that her contributions did not stop from the event of 1935. She continued to fight for the oppressed and help the needy until the time that she was very, very old. And I know that she was not interested in politics or material possessions. Her vision for our country is to be free from any colonizers for that matter. And she acted upon it. She fought for the immediate, complete, and total independence of our country during the American era. She could not possibly betray any of her compatriots who are fighting for the same advocacy. She has love and compassion. So for me, she is a genuine patriot. Until the time that she became old, her message to the youth was to love your country and to love your fellow man. And I think the kind of life that she led is something that we can all learn from because she lived a long life and she managed to walk the talk. Because sometimes, isn't it, we used to say that some of the problems of some of the heroes that they live too long, that then they become subject to criticisms, but not Lola. Lola was live a life that is still dedicated to the needy and the poor, and it's something that is admirable until the time that she died.
Did she leave behind written documents about her life? I know she had some interviews until right before she passed away. But do you were there any writings from her that you've seen?
Okay, that is unfortunate. Some of the family members said also that there are no pictures or there are no letters because they were burned by the Japanese. Because remember, she crisscrossed both the Japanese and the Americans. And also, Lola is not one who, she's not a politician. Although she joined the Sakdali movement, she was not a politician. So she did not think of a day that maybe one day that she will be talked about or something like that.
This is going to be a bit more of a personal question. How does being a descendant of Salud Algabre shape your sense of identity as a woman, as an artist, and as a Filipino?
My Lola advocated for empowerment and social justice. Um, and I think that's something that is quite relevant, no, other than the fact that she led a revolution. Um, so with that in mind, I actually have used my art to promote empowerment of women and also the marginalized groups. I have the Cordillera series of paintings. So they talk about my inspiration for those paintings are the women of Cordillera. And I portray them with, they usually carry something on their head. And because I wanted to show how resilient a woman can be and how much burden she can actually carry. You will find that she's always standing at ease with something heavy on her loads. She's still graceful and all that. It's my depiction of the woman, how resilient they are, and the God given strength that the woman has. Followed by the Cordillera series, I also have the Queen series. This series of paintings focus on big fat women. It came about as an extension of my thoughts of the Cordillera series because I thought that as women we should embrace our uniqueness. And I'm happy that as an artist, I was able to find freedom in interpreting beauty. In what I do not limit myself to what society may dictate on the standards of physical beauty. So you will find the Cordillera series, the hips are very wide, but the meaning extends beyond the ability of a woman to give birth. It's more on to be able to nurture her capacity to nurture on someone. And then on the Queen series, the big fat women, you will see how empowered they are. You will see them in settings or scenarios that they're not expected to be. Like I will have a big woman on top of a palo cebo, that bamboo pole, if you're familiar with that game, or someone who's dancing technically, which is not the case because growing up, I remembered only the slim ones were asked to do the dance and all that. And then I also have the Korean series of paintings. These are dedicated to the migrant women of Korea because I understand that there are challenges that they face, day to day. Challenges with their relationship with the in-laws, challenges with money, challenges with learning the Korean language. And basically, from their stories, there's a lot of cases of culture shock. I decided to paint about the Koreana series because I would like to share to the audience my dreams and hopes for the Filipino migrant women in Korea. My wish is for these women to be, as an artist, surrounded by the color of joy as they embrace the Korean way of life, so that they can build a happy family with bicultural or even multicultural children. And also, now moving on, going back to Lola Salud, Lola Salud fought to uphold the Filipino identity. I love promoting the Filipino identity, not only through my art, but in my everyday life. Majority of my artworks actually revolve around the Filipino heritage. And I would like to inspire and remind the Filipinos of their roots and the importance of embracing the Filipino heritage wherever they are. Let us not forget how far we've been, wherever we go, that we are Filipinos. We have an identity. If we learn about it, we can be proud about it. Of course, we are global citizens, but first and foremost, we must love our identity and where we came from. Lola also fought for justice, right? And she fought for justice because she wanted to uplift the lives of the peasants, so generally the life of the community. Well, I am really nothing in comparison to my Lola with what she has done, but nonetheless, I try my best to help a small group of people. I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but I have some students that I help, and I try to gather resources to benefit those in need. And for most of those times, I use my art as a tool in helping these people.
So I looked at your art also, and I think you're doing a wonderful job of sharing the Filipino identity with the world. I actually really like that series you did with the Cordillera. I'm going to go into what lessons do you think from Lola Salud's life are important for younger generations?
The values that Lola Salud showed us are actually centered on justice, equality, and of course, resistance to oppression. What I find profoundly relevant today is that her legacy resonates with peasants and workers' rights. There are similar struggles, actually, not only in the Philippines, but around the world, particularly in regions where the farmers and workers are marginalized by unjust land distribution and fair wages. And for the workers, there are also some exploitative corporate practices. I find that what my Lola has fought for is something that resonates in that aspect. My grandmother was also deeply connected to the rural poor. She advocated for their rights. And as I mentioned a while ago, until the day that she died, in fact, until 1975, I am told, she, in her very fragile body, would actually go to the illegal settlers located in Rotonda in Quezon City so that she can give away ayuda. Now, I have to be honest, the word ayuda became popular to me only during the COVID-19, but my Lola has been giving ayuda as early as 1938 onwards until 1975 when she became too fragile to do those things. And she did this not because she wanted to run for public office or to be popular. She did this out of compassion, out of her concern for the rural poor. The other thing that's very, very popular today is her legacy on gender equality and women in leadership roles. My Lola was a woman who became a leader in a male dominated organization, something that defied the norms during those times. Her fight for visibility and equality as a woman during that time advocates women empowerment. So nowadays, we have actually movements such as those that reflect the ongoing struggles against gender discrimination and many other things. That to me is very relevant. The other one is that the young generations can learn on her persistence in activism. As she remarked, no uprising fails. Each one is a step in the right direction. Her mindset is one of modern activism. As early as that time, already understood that sometimes progress can be incremental. It does not happen overnight. Nowadays there are activists fighting for climate change, for land, for human rights, social reforms, and many more, can actually find inspiration in this thought of Lola Salud. The persistent spirit, do not just give up because of setbacks, because setbacks do not mean failure. They're just part of the journey towards the change or the victory that we all wanted to achieve. And lastly would be her legacy on social justice. That one we know is something that is really valuable today. Okay, her belief in the continuous struggle for justice is something that we can learn from and be inspired about.
The last thing I would love to ask you is if there is anything you can tell her today, what would it be?
I will thank her. First, I will thank my Lola for the legacy, for what she has done. I'll say thank you very much, Lola, for what you have done. You know, her legacy is actually timeless. Her legacy is a call to action to stay committed, to never lose hope, and to understand that every struggle for justice may take time. It's something that is very inspiring. So I will thank her for that. I would also tell her that I will try to continue on with her legacy in the little way that I can. And I hope that the rest of the Algabres will do the same thing. I feel that there's more to learn about her other than what we read in the books and other than what was continuously said by some of the family members. So I will ask her if there are any other stories. I will also ask her about the situation nowadays, the Philippine diaspora, because a lot of women, we know that the huge percentage of our overseas Filipino workers are women. So I'd like to know her thoughts about it. She herself had to leave her children during the time that she became active with the Sandal movement. She made her children use the surname Aliliran. Lola's married a guy named Severo, no, si Lolo Berong. Severo Aliliran Henerala. I also would like to correct that a lot of people think that Henerala, she came to be known as Henerala Salud because of Henerala. No, she became known as Henerala Salud in her own right because Lola Salud, when she got married, even at that time, she already on the understanding that her marriage is a change in status, not a change of descent. So she did not want to drop the Algabre. She wanted to stay Algabre. I think just like me, she's very proud of her descent. She knows that in her veins runs the blood of patriots, you know, from the great grandfather and to the uncles who fought along with Bonifacio in the Katipunan. So anyway, going back, yes, she did leave her children, and some of her children were deposited to some of the relatives. So there is some similarity about how the situation of the Filipino women is nowadays. So I'd like to understand her thoughts on diaspora. And to be honest, some of our relatives are already residing in the U.S. and in other parts of the world. I'd like to hear from her if she did even expect this to happen. I also would like to know her vision for the future, like what kind of Philippines, what kind of world she has in mind, what did she really hope to see during this time, and yeah, many more. Because one of our relatives said in our chat said that one of her discussions with Lola Salud during that time, she already had some political analysis that the Cold War would end and that the next superpower, we will have China, we will have, you know, she already had some thoughts about it. And of course, an artist, I would like to ask her, what would you like me to paint for her? Maybe she might want to have one of my artworks, to which I would be very happy and honored to do for her. Other than asking those questions, I also would like to tell my Lola her legacy will live on. You know, for me, I find that despite the fact that the other people may not know about her, they may not have a face. She is described as a head turner, but no pictures of her when she was young, unfortunately. So it will only be from how she was described by people who knew her. That does not change the fact that her legacy will continue on. Looking back, the depth of her active compassion was really underappreciated. Her contributions extend beyond the revolution. From the time that she was released from prison, she already started giving ayuda to the needy and the poor. Yes, she did give ayuda to the poorer members of the Sakdal party, as what my relative said, but her active compassion was not limited to the members of the Sakdal. She did it for everyone else. That is how my Lola did it. I think as a woman, that is a phenomenal woman.
Thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to share with the audience? Any upcoming projects you have that maybe they can follow you on social media?
Time to time, I do have some exhibits that are going on, and I am on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, and the account is Ana Algabre Hernandez. There is a website that, because I'm not techie, I'm not really the one who's doing it, but a very young boy who's doing it for me. And it's outdated, but it's something that you can look on, because I think the paintings hopefully will inspire you to love the Filipino identity, to love your heritage. Just like my Lola, her message, which was asked what was her message. Her message was, love your country. If you love your country and you love your fellow man, that will resolve a lot of things for everybody. And I'm in a situation where I always come along with my husband around the area. I have met a lot of people. Their challenges are different, the Filipino from one country to another, but sometimes it boils down to one, which is the diasporas because of economic needs. I pray to see the day that we have Filipinos going abroad because they chose to do so in a way that there is no pressure for them to go abroad to work. So I really would like to see the betterment of the Filipinos. With that, of course, we can contribute to the betterment of the world in general. Talking about your heroes, we don't need to do grand gestures. We don't need to do something out of the extraordinary. We can all become heroes in the simple way that we do. We don't need to be so wealthy to be able to make a difference. As long as we can make a positive impact, no matter how small, I think that is a heroic act. Please, to my fellow Filipinos, do know about your culture, do know about your history, because only when you know about it that you will learn to appreciate being a Filipino. Please love the Philippines, and as with anyone that you love, you would like to get to know a lot of things about them.
Hopefully, this conversation will inspire them to learn more about the heroines in our history that don't really get talked about. So, thank you very much, Miss Ana Algabre Hernandez, for coming on this show with us.
Thank you, Miss Agas.
Ana Algabre Hernandez, granddaughter of revolutionary leader Salud Algabre, shared insights into her grandmother's enduring legacy and her relevance to today's challenges. She emphasized her dedication to justice, equality, and resistance to oppression, highlighting her role as a revolutionary organizer in a male dominated movement. She also underscored her grandmother's compassion, recounting her tireless efforts to provide aid to marginalized communities long before ayuda became a common term. She also reflected on the values her Lola lived by: justice, gender equality, and perseverance in activism, and their resonance with modern struggles like land reform, workers' rights, and gender empowerment. She also drew parallels between Salud's sacrifices and the challenges faced by Filipino women in the diaspora today. She revealed how her own art and poetry aim to honor Filipino heritage and inspire others to embrace their identity and culture, echoing her grandmother's call to love your country. Looking to the future, she expressed a desire to see a Philippines where Filipinos work abroad by choice, not necessity, and called for a renewed appreciation of Filipino history and culture. She concluded with a heartfelt reminder that heroism lies in small, meaningful acts that make a positive impact on others. Ana Gabriel Hernandez continues her grandmother's legacy through her art and advocacy, urging Filipinos to take pride in their identity and strive for justice and equality in their own unique ways. And that's it for episode 30.2, and that concludes season 2 on the colonial period. Thank you again to Miss Ana Algabre Hernandez for gracing us with this interview, and thank you to our patrons: Christopher, Shireen, Janion, Shami Bemilish, Jennifer, Christina, Raymond, Matt, Ashley, Chanda, and Yati. Head on over to Patreon right now for access to this interview's summary and transcript and to listen to 9 other bonus episodes. Season 3 on the Second World War is right around the corner, but until then, I'll be posting a new image series called The Archives, where I will be sharing interesting tidbits from books and newspapers. So, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Threads, and Instagram at Her Story C Pod. That's Her Story, SEA Pod. This podcast was hosted and edited by Agus Ramirez. Thank you and see you soon.